very hearty good evening to all of you. Center of Excellence in Safety Engineering and Analytics, IIT Kharagpur, welcomes all the participants to the 11th weekend talk on Safety Engineering Management and Analytics. This program is conducted under Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, which is conducted by the Government of India, Ministry of Education, to commemorate 75 years of India's independence. So we start with this wonderful shloka and message. Asato ma sadgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityor ma amritam gamaya, which means that let us move from ignorance to the truth, from darkness to the light, and from death to immortality. With this, myself, Mom Mitra from Tata Steel, along with our co-moderators, Sovik Sinjana and Ashish, welcome you to this weekend talk. There is an announcement that we have an international conference on maintenance intelligent asset management. It will be in the blended mode. And Federation University Australia, Center of Excellence in Safety Engineering and Analytics, IIT Kharagpur, are organizing this, along with Asset Management Council Australia, Manipal Academy of Higher Education India. So the date is 12th to 15th of December 2021. Abstract submission deadline 10th September. Notification of abstract acceptance is 20th September, and the paper submission deadline and notification of acceptance is 15th and 30th October respectively.
Why are you telling this group?
Yes, sir.
Mom, you should tell what are you expecting from this group for this conference.
To submit the abstracts within the dates and deadline on these topics. We request all to submit the abstracts. Please note the dates and submit your abstracts and then the papers within the target deadlines. So with this, we already have a short chat, and we formally welcome the dignitaries on the virtual dais. So today our speaker is Dr. Diptendu Das. He is Senior Scientific Officer and Lead Inspector of Atomic Energy Regulatory Board, Government of India. So he passed out from IIT Kharagpur and he did his PhD from IIT Bombay. He joined British Oxygen as a process engineer and worked in various turnkey project executions and process design for cryogenic and non-cryogenic pressure swing adsorption plants. Later on, he joined Defense DRDO, Ministry of Defense, as scientist and worked in process, fire and explosive safety and quality assurance field for solid rocket propulsion. Subsequently, he joined AERB under Department of Atomic Energy, Government of India as a scientific officer. Since then, he is involved in scientific safety research, safety review, safety documents development, and regulatory inspection of Department of Atomic Energy units. And he is presently heading Industrial and Fire Safety Section of Atomic Energy Regulatory Board. And he was also involved in the developing of harmonized risk assessment guidance manual for Ministry of Environment, Government of India. And he is designated as a lead inspector under AERB, Atomic Energy Rules of Department of Atomic Energy, Government of India. And his topic today is fire safety analysis and evaluation in industries. So ladies and gentlemen, we are very, very blessed to have him as an expert speaker today. And I would request our Chairman, COE, SEA, Professor J. Maiti, to formally welcome our expert speaker.
Thank you, Mom. Good evening, Dr. Das. It's our pleasure to have you today. And you already know about our Center of Excellence in Safety Engineering and Analytics. And about Dr. Das, I do not extend the introduction, already Mom has said. Dr. Das is a very good researcher as well as administrator, and particularly in the domain of safety, quality, and occupational health. He is pioneer in industry, like your atomic nuclear industry's point of view. So I welcome you, Dr. Das, for this we can talk, and this is basically the 12th week we can talk, and I hope all the participants today will be extremely benefited from your talk. So now the stage is yours, Dr. Das. Please go ahead.
Yeah, good evening and hello, friends from the abroad, if anybody is present. And I'm thankful to again Professor Krishna, Obi Krishna, and Professor Maiti. They're doing wonderful job to bring all the safety professionals and researchers in the same field, same platform. And I'm happy to see they're doing a great job. And again, I am thankful for inviting the to deliver a talk here. And definitely, this is a area where I'll be talking today. It is fire and safety, and basically, I will cover the explosion part as well. So it is the challenge for the safety professionals to design, develop, and to model, and I will share my professional experience so that you can correlate in your respective industries, and academicians you can find the challenges and how we can model. And now I'm starting my presentation. So this particularly fire and explosion safety evolution. So what I will try to talk here, basically how this fire and explosion safety is important for an industry, how this slowly it has come up to a level. And if all of you know that nuclear, defense, aviation industries, these are the very critical industries where safety is given utmost importance, and particularly nuclear industries where you know that you cannot take any chance, because the if you see the consequence, if anything happens, the consequence is very high, and the so frequency has to be very low, and that's why the fire can be a common cause effect for such kind of industry if it is not properly maintained. So the lesson learned from any industries, any incident or accident, immediately it is being shared.
Sir got disconnected, I think, sir.
Text, yeah. Is it visible? Is it audible?
Yeah,
Yes,
you are
sir.
disconnected for a minute for 30 seconds.
Okay. So what happens? What I am telling, that this fire and explosion safety. What I will try to tell you about the design aspects, the modeling aspects, and the experience I will share, because and I will talk about what is regulatory role of the in atomic energy, and then I will brief, because this is a very vast topic. Each and every model, design, and all my MTech PhD students who are doing, it's a individual field, but here I will give you an idea overall this particular area, so that each of you academicians can appreciate how to model, how to design, and particularly in nuclear industries is giving lot of importance on safety, so that we should not take any chance, and any lesson learned from any national, international, any event. We call it, if you can Google, you will find that international nuclear event scale, like the seismic you are getting 1 to 7 scale or something. Similarly here, all over the world, if any event is happening, depending on the safety significance, we make a 0, 1, 2, or we'll grade based on the public, there's a public environment impact. It has been graded, and all the worlds, all the nuclear community, we come to a common platform that we can tell about this incident, if it is a 0 or if it is a 1. For example, Fukushima, if it is a 7, or Chernobyl, it is a INES scale 7. So this means that every country will say the same impact, and this is a common platform, and all the lesson learned will be immediately taken for all the country, and we are abiding by the conventional of nuclear safety. Now I'll talk about the theory and the modeling aspects, and some of my professional experience. The slide is not changing. Is it okay? I have to come in the slide, I think. Yeah. Now you see that in my talk, I'll cover about the little bit of introduction where I'll talk about the importance of regulations. Self-regulations is of course is the best, but in India, what is the statutory provision for the fire, explosions, and overall safety? Now I'll talk about fire basic theory. Then I will talk about the principle and approaches of fire safety, where I will cover fire hazard analysis, fire ratings. These are the two important things. Then I will talk about the different models of fire. Then I'll talk about the different types of an explosion model and in fire simulations, how we can carry out. And I will talk based on my experience and some case studies. And finally, I'll cover the conclusion also all the safety professionals, engineers, and the scientists you can think of, and in your respective industries and research area, what you can do in this area. So you see that Atomic Energy Regulatory Board, it established 1983, and in India, Atomic Energy Act 1962 governs the all the regulations, and it talks about the safety aspects of the in India. And Dr. Bhava has thought of the first thing to establish in the nuclear in India. Then he has developed the safety first, and that is a really good platform. And initially it started with BRC, and now it is independently it is now independent board, that is Atomic Energy Regulatory Board. And this board actually ensure that ionizing radiation and nuclear energy in India does not cause undue risk to the health and people and environment. Now under our Atomic Energy Commissions, you can see Atomic Energy Commission is the topmost body, and under this independent body is Atomic Energy Regulatory Board under Government of India, Department of Atomic Energy. And the Department of Atomic Energy, you see that all the R&D sector we are regulating, that is BRC, IGCAR, RRCAT, VCC, AMD. And you can see that sometimes I find, based on my expertise and by the auditing in the fire and safety audits, I find that sometimes the research area, they're little lagging, because they think that actually it is not having that fire potential, or but they are little safer zone, but it is not. I feel IGCAR, for example, in our one of the research unit is handling lot of sodium, so they are giving utmost importance on the fire. So all other industries like BRC, RRCAT, VCC, and even IIT also, while I was doing my PhD days, I can give you a small example where I was carrying my research. I found one of my next to PhD student. He was in a hot plate. He was putting a bottle, a phenol bottle. I still remember. He was trying to melt it. It was a semi-solid bottle. I mean, semi-solid chemical was there, something of phenol, and phenol itself is a carcinogenic. And he was trying to melt it so that he can use in his research. And the bottle was totally closed, sealed, and he was trying to heat it so that that semi-solid condition becomes liquefy, and he can use for his experiment. And it blasted, in the lab itself. So such kind of small things can occur, and of course potential was that incident was less, but such kind of thing can happen in area R&D unit. That's why in our nuclear industry, even BRC, IGCAR, RRCAT, VCC, AMD, Atomic Mineral Divisions, all these R&D units, we are giving utmost importance of safety, and they are doing very well. Similarly, the public undertaking like NPCIL, Nuclear Power Corporation of India Limited, all the nuclear reactors, the safety is the topmost priority. Bhabini is our first breeder reactor in India. That is prototype first breeder reactor is coming. So they are also in the world. That is the first time we are exploring the this sodium as a liquid sodium as a fuel. A lot of fire challenges is there, and they are doing very good job. And Uranium Corporation of India Limited, IREL, and ECIL, Electronic Corporation of India Limited, they are developing lot of detectors. They are doing lot of sensors, and lot of for defense, and lot of research work is going on there. And it is coming under Atomic Energy. And our industries, if you see the heavy water plant, nuclear fuel complex, Board of Radiation Isotope Technology, and then these are the industries we are regulating, where only this like any other chemical plants or chemical industries, And of course, we are having other industry service sectors, and also like Saha Institute, Nuclear Physics, Tata, TIFR, they are our aided institution. Now you see that function of AERB, we are developing safety documents. So India, if I request, I request Adar, please mute. There is a lot of echo. There is a lot of echo. Yeah. So now it is okay. Now see that we are developing the safety documents because like our statutory practice acts rules, there is we are develop. I think there is a little echo is going. I again request if anybody's mic is on, please put up now.
Tommy, please mute all the mics except the speaker.
Yeah. So
Except the speaker.
so these are open. Anybody can use these safety documents are available our website. Certain other than some restricted document classified, many things are open. Particularly AERB standards you can use for. In fact, in India, if you find that YSD, Oil India Safety Director, they are developing good standards, and I can tell the other industry that DRDO also developing their pamphlet, but it's very classified in nature, so that it is not available in open literature. Whereas AERB, we are working for the public, so that our public should not get any harm of because of ionizing and radiation. That's why we are open to public, and BRC in that way is classified, on all other facility we are regulating, and BRC is regulated by BRC safety councils. Now it sees that safety research, licensing of key operating personnels, because nuclear industry you cannot operate unless you are getting license. It is highly sensitive, so that all licensing an engineer must have to go like MTech, or it's a thorough 2 years course, and then they have to go for all the licensing, and they have to pass even all the safety, and with very the criteria, passing criteria maybe 80%, 90%. So that has to be the the competency level if a nuclear operator works on the nuclear systems. Now review and emergency preparedness and public, because emergency preparedness is the one area all of you have heard about Fukushima. Fukushima, the main problem was that emergency preparedness. We found that even though International Atomic Energy Agency, they have given a guideline that 20 millisievert to 100 millisievert. In fact, that much of radiations, there is no there is no proven any body effect in that such a low level of radiation. Whereas International Atomic Energy has a given guidelines that if anybody is getting this kind of dose, 20 millisievert and above, the country can evacuate. But we found that because of the evacuation or the emergency process, many people got affected so much, more than the nobody died because of the radiation, whereas emergency evacuation people got affected. So in India also we have taken a lot of improvement in emergency, because that is the area where we found from the lesson learned we have improved, and all over India, in the world, in fact, done a lot of we have on-site emergency, off-site emergency, but the criteria we have modified, and along with the NDMA we have developed, we are developing for the nuclear emergency right now. Now you see that I'll talk about now fire basics theory. Now you see that fire is basically a chemical reaction, but if all of you must have seen that rusting or the corrosion, that is also a chemical reaction, but only difference is that is a very slow chemical reaction. So because of the slow chemical reaction, that hazard is not there. But whereas fire is a very hazardous, because if it is the rate of reaction is so fast, that's why in fact the taking of any mitigation actions, you are not getting any chance. You are not getting any time to do some mitigating actions or evacuation. Whereas in the explosion, it is further dangerous, because it is a microsecond phenomenon. If something happens, really you don't have any time to take any mitigating measures. That's why explosion is further dangerous, and this fire, if you chemical reaction, if you see, it is having three arms like fuel, oxygen, and ignition source. Now the idea is that if you can remove any of the arms, then fire can stop. So that's why all the fire extinguishing, fire mitigating measure are, all the efforts are given to take out one of these arms, that is fuel or ignition source. But you know that ignition source sometimes it is having very low. I can tell you even maybe it is a order of millijoules. So even there are some like sodium azide or some chemicals is there, even in the starching or in the by friction of your hand, that can generate some kind of ignition source or static electricity enough to get cause such kind of thing as ignitions. So there are a lot of accident in the worldwide on even in the static electricity. So that is also one of the particularly explosive area. Lot of safety precaution has to be there. All my industry friends, they know that they use safety shoes to protect from the electrical hazards. But in explosive industries, there has to be conducting shoe, that your body should not get charged. And even a person enter in the explosive building, he had to first earthing himself. So even in the different persons, we are having different charges in our body. So sometimes that can cause the static electricity, and it can cause even a touching can make a shock, and it can ignite it can cause ignition source. So that's why these three arms are very important. Now you see that latest concept is fire tetrahedron. I can tell you sometimes some of the chemicals, even people don't know. They thought that that if oxygen is not there, it is not flammable. But there are some chemicals like some oxidizer, like ammonium nitrate, ammonium perchlorate. They itself carries oxygen. So that does not require any external oxygen. If it starts burning, it will burn until it is having chemical oxygen supply in between. And it's like free radical mechanism. There's a chain reaction. So if this chain reaction is there, then it is utmost importance to break the chain reaction. So that's how all our development of the extinguishing technology, it takes care of the chain reaction. So apart from the fire triangles, which I discussed my last slide, the fire tetrahedron is also an important concept. Now you see that definition wise in India, our chief controller of explosives, CCE, they are the regulatory body, but now it has become PESO, Petroleum Explosive Safety Organization. So the atomic energy regulatory body, we are regulating. We are the a nuclear industry. There is no factory inspectors, so we are the inspectors and lead inspectors. Depending on our expertise, we regulate all the nuclear industries, because this is a very specialized field. So outside inspectors are not allowed. And of course, the other statutory like boiler inspector, Ministry of Environment, other regulatory body is also there, but particularly the as sections 16 a competent authority. Our chairman is the competent authority, and you see that PESO, Petroleum Safety Organization, they are there is one rules is there, that is called Manufacturing, Stores, Imports of Hazardous Chemicals Rules, MSIC rules, which talks about all the hazardous chemicals in India. Particularly, it has started long before Seveso incident. You know, that toxic event, because if a chemical release, if it is a toxic, then it is an accident. But if it is a flammable gas is released, then if you are not, if you are lucky enough, then it can just disperse. It may not ignite even. So that is a flammable release, not an accident, but it is an incident. But when it gets an ignition source, if it catches fire, then it is an accident. So you see that fire depends on the flash point. Then the flammable limit, flammable liquid is defined by the NFPA. These are again open literature you can see about, and the combustible liquid. So it has given that liquid which is having flash point less than 37 is normally 37 degree less is called flammable liquids. Now you see that flammability dependency. Now, as I told that anything which liquid, if it is flashing, then the vapor will form, and vapor forms the ignite. Vapor gets ignition source and ignite. And from this particularly graph, if you see, this is the, suppose the flammable flash point, that is sufficient vapor, sufficient flammable vapor generate, which can ignite. And if you see the fuel concentration, for example, if I take a, suppose a gas cylinder of methane, if it is methane is there, it will not ignite. Even if I get a ignition source, it will not ignite, because this is the concentration might be higher than the flammable limit. That's why it is called upper flammable. That means fuel is too high, whereas oxygen supply is comparatively less. So it is basically oxygen limiting. So now in that, this zone also, it will not, this concentration also, it will not ignite. Whereas in the low, very low concentration of fuel, maybe let's say for hydrogen, it is 4 to 76%. So less than 4% of hydrogen, if you maintain, then the less than 1%, if you maintain to be on safer side, then there is no fire you can find or explosion you can find. So that's why the upper limit and lower limit is there for every chemical. And there is a those who are doing research on this fire explosion, those who study the MSDS, that is material safety data sheets. So that is the under the MSISC rules in Government of India. We have given any chemicals, it is having all the physical property, chemical properties, fire and explosion property, and even emergency procedures are given in the MSDS. So that MSDS is having also another for the toxic. Again, we are following ACGIS, American Conference of Government of Industrial Hygienes. They are also every year they are doing a lot of research and publishing the data of chemicals. You can get all the details of the flash point, auto ignition point, and auto ignition point is the temperature. If a chemical is there, then if it ignites, if the temperature, just if you're increasing its temperature beyond which you don't need any even oxygen, it will ignite itself. So whatever the atmospheric oxygen is there, so that is enough to cause the fire. So that's why auto ignition point also, you should design such a system that it should never reach auto ignition points. Now, if you see that, as I told, that effect of the parameters on flammability, then temperature is one, the percentage the fuel is one, and the type of compound. Particularly in the research area, sometimes we see that they don't know that all our chemicals in the laboratory storeroom, they will keep it alphabetical order like A, B, C, likewise. But sometimes some chemicals are not compatible with each other. So you have to see which chemicals are not compatible with the others. That should not be kept together. So that's why some of the researchers, even in the carrying in the laboratory experiment, they make sometimes some accident. So that's why the type of compound and auto ignition temperature, material in contact, size of the content, these are important. Now you see the lower flammable temperature limit and upper flammable limit, which I talked about. Sometimes also for the explosion, it is called lower explosion limit and this UL or upper explosion limit. So these are more or less similar, but only thing is that fire and explosion difference is the, as I told, the rate of reaction. The explosion rate of reaction is much faster than the fire. And you see that it is different hydrocarbons. For example, particularly the hydrocarbon industry, they might be interested. You see the lower flammability also depends on in the hydrocarbon, this molecular weight. So higher the change, it becomes lower, because already you are getting more of hydrogen in that itself in the hydrocarbon. Now worldwide, if you see the fire, you will find that electrical accident is fire. Because of electrical fire is very common, almost 23%. Smoking is the another one cause of fire. In India, of course, certain area I found grass fire is also causing fire, because people are bothering about their plants. Sometimes grass, somebody throwing some lighter, the smoking, or it can cause the fire, the grass fire. The friction, sometimes the friction, I will talk about in my case study. I will tell about how the friction can be devastated for an industry. Then overheated materials, hot surface, burner flames, cutting, welding, mechanical sparks. static electricity I was talking about, particularly explosive industry, static electricity is very, very important. Now, you see the principal approaches of fire safety. Now, and how designed, what are the things you should consider the design? Like, it is called defense in depth principle, like, this our Mahabharata, this Abhimannu's theory, if you see that Chakravartin. So there is layer of safety has to be there in the fire. So that if one layer fails in nuclear industry, what happens? The one layer protection safety is there. So if that is not working, the second level will be there. Second level, if sometimes if it's not a function, in the third level will be there. So there will be defense in depth. So in the fire, defense in depth means the early detection of fire is first the one thing. Then there's a prevention, detection, and the mitigation. These are the three steps. Now early detection, then quick suppressions, and that the designing of plant of systems should be such that the safety functions should not be jeopardized. That is what that particularly in the nuclear examples I can tell you, like Fukushima incident, all of you have seen, Chernobyl you have seen. The main function like thermal power plant and nuclear power plant, only difference is there. It is all about the heat is generated, steam is generated, and power is, because turbine you are moving, rotating, and the generator, you are generating power. But the only difference is that the heat production method here, it is nuclear. So nuclear, in addition to because thermal power, the coal power, other industry, if you just put it off, plant is off. But nuclear industry, even if you put it off, there is a decay heat is going on. And that is the challenge, that you have to have cool your reactor. So safety function has to be, that is we call it the 3C. That is the first one is the cooling, then the confinement, because the radioactivity should not go to and the control. So control of radioactivity, then cooling, and the confined. So these are the safety functions. Similarly, other industries also, there has to be some critical function. For example, a reactor is running, a chemical reactor is running, that has to be cooled. But otherwise, runaway reaction may take place. So that safety function should not get disturbed in case of fire or in case of any incident. That if that is disturbed, then you cannot control a reactor. So it is, of course, nuclear, it is of highest priority, but all other industry, the other lectures I was listening, somebody was telling about the lesson learned is not taken care of. So lesson learned is the one thing where a nuclear industry, if anything happening, even a small near miss incident also, that has to be recorded and that has to be shared with all the unit and the common cause. If any common cause, for like a fire, sometimes we call it common cause, because if fire is occurring, there might be two different sensors is there, and two different sensors is failing at simultaneously. So even though you are giving something on redundant or diversity in design, but fire can jeopardize both the safety system. That's why you have to see, you have to make the compartment. I'll talk about my subsequent slide. Now you see that fire in chemical plants and fire in nuclear plants, how it is different. Now you say, all of you might have seen that movie, Chernobyl movie. Those who have not seen, they can just find in the net. That the firefighter tendency is there, anything is fire is there, firefighter will rush to the spot and they will try to put the water. But you know that if it is radioactivity is there, then that water may also become radioactivity. Water may have may be contaminated. So that's why fire will not spread any radioactive contamination in chemical plant, but nuclear it is there. Now fire water used in suppression of fire is free from radioactive contamination, but fire water used in suppression of fire need to be contained. So once you are extinguishing fire, that water you should not bother about. But in nuclear industry, that water has to be contained, that because that may become contaminated because of fire. Now decontamination is not required in the chemical cases, whereas in additional thing we have to take care of nuclear industry, that is the decontamination of water. So that's why the probability, as I am telling, that probability will be such that in the nuclear case, the probability should be less than 10 to the power -6, -7, so that it should not happen. And you have to give so much of safety systems, redundant system, diversified system, and you have to make compartment, and so that it should be very of a remote possibility. And I will discuss about some of the incident worldwide or in India, those and how the it is a continual improvement. How there is no chance for the complacency in this field, safety field, and particularly fire and safety field. Every day you have to think for new, and every day you have to be updated. Now you see the fire safety regulation in India, Factories Act 1948. All as of now it is existing. Very soon you will find that our OHSC code is kind Occupational Health Safety Code. Just the Government of India, both the Parliament it has passed, and the notifications we are waiting for. So all the acts and rules of course will be merged and will be changed shortly. But I mean, based on the acts, some rule will be modified or updated. Now, this Atomic Energy Factories rules, it is existing, and even in this Atomic Energy Factories rules, if you can Google it, you can find it that all the safety provisions and fire, particularly fire provisions, has been given. Revised fire standard, the AERB, we have developed our fire standard. You can see in the figures, like each and every field, we are developing our codes and standards. And codes are mandatory. It will not give you how we will do. It will tell what is the requirement, design requirement, and guide will tell you that how we can achieve that requirement. It will be more and explicit, and of course standard is furthered in detail. So there are 3 levels of documents we are publishing for the Government of India. And you see that particularly our nuclear power plant, there is a special guide, safety guide for pressurized heavy water reactor, because these are the 3 types of mainly reactors we are having. This pressurized heavy water reactor, light water reactor, and of course prototype fast breeder reactor is coming. So the safety and fire safety is given topmost priority in all these reactors. Now you see that design aspects in fire prevention, that as I told, that separation of redundant safety system, safety related divisions. Now there are, if 2 sensors are there, then the 2 sensors should be, one is redundant and one of them should be diversified. Diversified means that the fundamental principle of that sensor, both the cases might be different. It should be different. So suppose one is something of, for example, you are measuring some temperature. So one may be RTD based. One may be some other, some infrared technique or some other ways, because maybe the RTD may not be functional, but maybe your optical sensor is working. So likewise, that it has to be redundant. You should have redundant system, as well as it has to be diversified system. Now, separation of critical areas and non-critical areas. Suppose something is happening in the non-critical areas, for example, in the I say thermal power or nuclear power. Maybe something is happening in your, say, utility area, like fire water or pump house. It should not come to the nuclear reactor. So all the critical area should be isolated from the non-critical area. Then the establishment of administrative procedures. You should have SOP, you should have CCTV, everything. Your administrative is the one thing which, this unauthorized access. Sometimes we find that there are having a lot of inquisitive people in the industry and academic. So only authorized people should go and work. I can tell you one more examples, of course, that my research days I found. Many people, they will I was carrying out some study on the electrohydrodynamics. I was applying for the very high electric field to see the deformation of bubble. The first thing which I found that in the lab, is a very sophisticated lab, you have every facility, but because the shoes are not allowed in the lab, but you have to work in the very high voltage or current. So first thing I put the insulation rubber mat. So maybe that can save people, that can save students, and it really worked. So such kind of thing, you have to think for, because sometimes you find that process and safety, they should not go together. For example, another experiment, when I was doing some rocketry research, so I found that suppose the process demands that the signal should be very strong. Suppose we are doing some ballistic study, and that ballistic study, all the thrust we are measuring and all, then the signal cable length, as we go away from the experiment, the signal is becoming weaker and weaker, whereas safety demands lot of safety distance. So safety distance, that means sometimes process and safety, you may not find it is going together, but you have to come to an optimization solution. Now ventilation is one area. In case of fire, it is again a debatable thing, because If suppose you are sitting in the control rooms and fire happens, and if fire propagates to control room, that control room can get smokes. But in case of course nuclear, there's additional hazard, as I told, that radioactivity may comes out. So immediately fire damper, a fusible link should be worked, and damper should close the supply and exhaust both. But in case of the there is, if smoke is generated, then that can also suffocate. That's why you require the fire hazard analysis. You have to see all the provisions. So fire hazard analysis, one area. There's a lot of industry, particularly in nuclear industry. As an inspector, we always, any project, anything comes to us, the first design thing we should see the fire hazard analysis. I'll talk about fire hazard analysis. Of course, quality assurance, another area, because the FRLS cables or anything, that safety, there is sometimes that safety we cannot compromise on the quality. So quality and third party checks is required. Now see the practical approach. Practical approach in the industry, the fire door, I will discuss about fire ratings, fire barriers, particularly the DG building. Suppose DG, every industry is having a diesel generator. They store some diesel oil. So there has to be some day tank, and then your permanent storage would be different. And if day tanks, normally we don't allow inside the room. If you are putting inside the room, then the day tank should have fire barrier. Now this FRLS cable, fire stuff, fire drill is a good thing. And I think all the industry, they should come to a point, the fire stuff. In nuclear industry, of course, we are keeping 2 crews for the hour, depending on the hazard potential, or multiple nuclear, we are putting 2 crews, and suppose the less hazard is 1 crews. And likewise, we are managing so that fire staff, fire drill requirement, everything is very much standardized. All industries have, I'm sure they are having fire order. Nuclear industries, along with the fire order, the fire stand, they have to follow our fire standard. And fire equipment testing. Fire equipment testing also, very categorically, our standard is telling that all the equipment, how it has to be tested, what is the frequency, and even the kind of testing requirement also specified. And in addition to that, there is a technical specifications of each industry. So along with all the critical parameters of their technical spec, will tell you what should be the limiting condition of operation, or what will be the limiting safety systems, all the interlocks, and all the controls. And along with that, the fire safety also will be given. So there are multiple, defense in depth has given. Now you see that any industry, if you do some risk assessment study, then you have to have that system description. Then you have to know the systems very well. Then you have to identify the hazards. Then you have to find that what are the scenario it can fail. Like if 2 inches line is there, 4 inches line is there. So if a reactor is there, so I cannot assume this entire reactor can blast. Maybe I have to find out which the weakest link. So those kind of things we will find, that is scenario. Then we'll do the accident probability, that we all the fault tree analysis, event tree analysis. We have done a couple of study on the Bayesian update model for developing the failure frequency rates, and that all the failure frequency we can find out for the systems, find out the consequence, and find out the risk. And if you find the acceptable risk, in India, of course, we have developed one for the Ministry of Environment, MOEF has requested us, and we have developed one risk acceptance criteria. Of course, that not yet implemented. It is still at the decision stage. So USA, we will find US EPA, or the particularly Holland and other industries, they are, the other countries, they are having the acceptable risk. In the nuclear, of course, it is code damage frequency, if you 10 to the power -6, that low order is there. But in chemical industry, it is not yet established, but MOEF is working, and AERB also, we developed something from them, and maybe shortly it will come. Now we see that if the acceptable risk is the below of this, then you will operate. Otherwise, if it is not, then you have to go and again the redesign. So today I will talk about the accident consequence, that is the fire. Fire, because my talk is on fire. Now designed, already I discussed about that DG rooms, then detectors. Again, I told you that different types of different detectors, that is smoke detectors, that UV IR detectors. Again, sometimes people put sometimes smoke detectors in the area where a lot of already there is a probability of generating lot of smokes, or in the oil. Actually, smoke detector should not be put such area. Maybe thermal detector is better, or where the rate of rise temperature is there, temperature rise, that is the thermal detectors are better. And UV IR detector, we found it is always better compared to, I mean, of course, it is little costly, but it is better compared to other detectors. And you have to find it out sometimes the position of the detector. So many cases we found that even the detectors are given, but that area itself is when fire is occurring, that is not being detected. So that's why the design stage. So anything, fire hazard analysis has to be done. It has to be seen in 3 stages: one from the design stage, one for the commissioning stage, and one any modifications if they are in the plant. That time also it is to be checked again. Now you see design aspects in the sprinkler and water spray systems, fire hydrant, stand pipe and hose systems. These are the, and sprinkler again, our fire standards, we have the high velocity water spray systems, medium velocity, and fire hydrant hose systems. Because the idea is that any fire line is there, fire hydrant system is there, the topmost point, that 3.5 kg per centimeter square, that pressure, that water pressure has to be there. So many times, that fire hydrant system design you have to see, because that ultimately that is the one mitigating measures, because in the case of fire, most of the cases, 90% cases or 95% cases, water is the media of air can help you to mitigating the fire event. Now you see that fire hazard analysis I was telling about you, that fire hazard analysis actually it is very important for any project. Suppose any new project is coming, then first thing, or any, when in the research area also, some any thing, explosions or fire related projects you are doing, you have to see that what are the fire hazards in that plant. Now you see that I will discuss how to calculate the fire hazards. Now fire hazards, you have to see what are the combustible materials and the combustible load, that is per unit area. And you have to, that is the one is the, if you don't have that of infrastructure to check the details, then at least you should have idea of use the fundamental principle and try to calculate the combustible material load and the per area. And that is a Bureau of Indian Standards, where many of our we are also participating in BIS standard development. I know we have specified that for a particular load, what should be the the fire requirement, that the fire mitigating requirement. You should see that BIS standards. And in nuclear industries, we are doing little more, because the how smoke is propagating, how temperature is propagating, whether it is if hypothetical fire is coming, then you have to do some computational fluid dynamics CFD model, and you have to see whether really it is affecting on your safety system or not. Now in the fire hazard analysis, again, there are 2 type of approach. One is called fire containment approach, one is called fire influence approach. Now in the containment approach, you can see in the figure here, suppose these are the red this block, you can see it may have 2-3 safety systems. Like for example, nuclear reactor, suppose you are cooling a reactor, suppose emergency core cooling systems, or maybe your control rods. So these are the some safety systems. So suppose the safety systems are there, then the fire should not. So in this fire containment approach, it assumes that all the different fire safety systems are in the same compartment. And so in that case, suppose if you are in the, so if you can design a plant, this all the this safety systems in the same compartment, then you have to do fire influence approach, which I'll talk in the next slide. But in the fire containment approach, what happens is 2 different fire, suppose fire is occurring. If these safety systems, 2 redundant safety systems are there, then one safety system should be there in another compartment. Because in case of fire, if something happens in this compartment, then this other safety system should be available, which can help you and save your plant. So that is the containment approach. Here we are not taking any credit of fire detectors or fire suppression system. We are assuming that fire is happening. Fire has occurred, and this entire safety systems are this compartment, everything is lost. But fire should not that come out to the others compartment, and this compartment should be the safe. So that is the fire containment approach, and this is a deterministic approach where we are assuming that a deterministic fire has occurred, and everything is no credit has given on the any fire mitigating measures. and other compartment we have to see whether any fire is propagating or not. That is the fire containment approach. And the another approach, that is the most practical approach, that is if you are that is called fire influence approach. Here what happens that these safety systems are here we are taking credits of all the fire detector, fire mitigations, and if any ignition source is there. Now if fire is happening, then we have to use our CFD technique, and we have to see how far that the smoke can propagate, what is the temperature profile, and whether really if it is this fire can this fire is getting contact to other safety systems in the same compartment. So that is called fire influences approach, and accordingly you have to put the fire barriers, and you have to see the functionality of your safety systems. Now you see that as I told that any barrier you want to put, the first things you have to see the fire ratings. Again, Bureau of Indian Standards BIS codes is available. You can see the fire rating. Now you see that this is the graph. This is the graph. It is a temperature time curve for any particular chemicals or any material if you want to study. So for example, if I want to put a fire door, let's say that a battery room is there. Battery room can generate some kind of hydrogen. You have to see that if any fire is occurring, that fire should not come out of that room. So fire door should prevent. Now in that fire door prevent, how you can design the rating. So this is a standard curve. So all the country, they have come up with a particular temperature time curve where it's some furnace that some temperature will be gradually increasing, and there will be a barrier, and you can see that that these three things are important. One is the fire rating, one is the stability. So if you are putting suppose a fire door, then stability will see that how up to what time it is withstanding the fire, and the structure is not degraded or it is not being collapsed. So one is the insulation, how you can put, suppose if there is any crack is there, if any crack is coming, and because of the crack, if some flammable mixture or something is fire is coming outside of the that barrier, and if you are putting a cotton things, and if that cotton is getting burned, then you are telling that insulation has failed. Similarly, the integrity, that is the one is the integrity. One is the integrity that cracks should not develop, and the stability. Stability means basically, for example, steel. Normally it is taken care of. The more than 550 degrees temperature is reached, that means it can collapse. So that particularly steel, concrete, that any structure is there, the stability part is also there. So you see that how we can calculate. Basically, the temperature time curve is there. So this temperature time curve, that area under this curve actually gives the severity. Now in real time fire, because initially there will be once the fire starts, then it gradually the fire temperature increase, and ultimately the fuel will be consumed. Because standard time curve, there will be no dearth of there is enough fuel is available, so it is continuous increasing trend will be there. But in real time fire, ultimately either it will be oxygen limiting or it can be fuel limiting, so fire will be gradually extinguishing itself. So that's why there will be decreasing. So if I want to compare with the standard, it has to be compared always with the standard time temperature curve. So area of this your fire experiment curve, that area has to be equated with the standard temperature curve, and you have to find it out up to what temperature it can withstand. It can maintain all the three criteria. That is what I talked about: insulation, stability, and integrity. Now you see that classifications of fire. So there are 4 classifications of fire. That is class A fire, that is combustibles like any solid fire. Class B is the flammable liquids, that is all paints, grease, solvents. Class C is the gaseous fire, and class D is fire in metal fire. So metal fire is very difficult to handle, because sometimes aluminum powders have come across, zirconium powders, they are very devastating. I mean, zirconium powder fire, even in the waste burning or in the throwing in the air, it can catch fire, and that can propagate fire. And zirconium temperature, sometimes it can reach to 800 degrees centigrade, and very difficult to say if a person is nearby. So that's why metal fire, of course, there is a special type of fire extinguisher called ternary eutectic chloride. So firemen should not put water immediately. because many times instead of extinguishing fire, it can aggravate the fire. So fire in metal is really a challenging field. And then there is of course the fire flammable liquid and particularly gaseous. You use CO2 fire, and solid fire always water type or gas expelled water type is preferable. Now you see that fire and explosion of models. Now you might have heard about the IOCL Jaipur fire or the some other like Texas fire. So many cases, if you see that some releases occurred, but ultimately what happens, as I told, if releases occurred and if you are enough, I mean lucky enough, it has not found any ignition source, there is no fire. So that's why if release is happening and if immediately ignite, so immediately ignite, there can be two types of fire. One could be jet fire and another could be called pool fire. Now, if it is not immediately fire, it is dispersed, and after sometimes maybe after 4-5 minutes it is a fire, then it can be the flash fire, or it can be some kind of vapor cloud explosion. And also there is another kind of explosion is called BLEVE, boiling liquid expanding vapor explosions. That also I will talk about. Now you see that vapor cloud explosions, you might have heard of the IOCL Jaipur fire. That is the only one fire accident in India. You can find every analysis, even Bhopal analysis, you will not find much in the internet. Whereas IOCL Jaipur fire, you can search in the Google, you will find lot of analysis on this. So that vapor cloud explosions, it happens because all of you know that some this motor operated valve and hammer blind valve, some leakage was there, and because it some flammable cloud has developed, and this flammable cloud, once it got ignite, and that is called vapor cloud explosions. Now normally for explosions there is a requirement of the confinement, but in this unconfined vapor, this is actually unconfined vapor explosion. As you are seeing, it is releasing to the atmosphere even though there is explosion, because it is a kind of misnomer, because the cloud is not able to disperse itself. So the energy is releasing suddenly, and there is the pressure wise a shock wave generated. And in this particular case, if you study, you will find that shock the pressure generated more than 1 atmospheric. That is, I mean, I am talking about gauge pressure. So that that is peak over pressure generated. And if 0.5 atmosphere pressure over pressure can generate, it can throw even the loaded truck or loaded wagon, it can overturn. So you can understand the kind of explosion it occurs. And of course in this case, all of you know this, almost 11-12 fatality was there. Now you see jet fire is another fire that is also very peculiar kind of fire, where maybe a small hole is there, and particularly in the hydrocarbon industries they found this kind of accident. So jet fire, the very high pressurized liquid comes out, and if it finds ignition source, then it will catch fire, and the fire will go back to the source, because it will follow the projectile and it will go back the source and it will create a havoc. So that's why jet fire, more than the fire, the domino, we call it as a domino effect. That is actually more prominent in jet fire. Now, if you want to model the jet fire, you have to find it out, first, what is the discharge rate. There is lot of, consequence analysis model, which I will not able to cover in this short time. Then you have to calculate the flame height. Then you have to find it out, estimate point of source location, estimate the radiant fractions, how much, heat is coming out. Then the view factors, that out of how much energy the person is receiving, or that particular distance you are getting, and that the transmittivity equation, and then incident and radiant flux equation, and you have to calculate the thermal flux. Now you see that jet fire, you can see that all the L/D ratio. There are the best, I always prefer the fundamental models, but there are also empirical models which you can calculate that L/D, that is length of the turbulent flame, and the diameter. If you know all these material and physical property, you can calculate, but it will overestimate. But the idea, the 3D model or the CFD model is best, but you can calculate here also if you calculate the transmittivity, if you know the total amount of heat release and the view factor, if you calculate, then you can find it out how much radiant flux. Now, just to give you an idea, if you typically stand in scorching heat of sun, you will get around 1.5 to maybe 2 kilowatt per meter square. But this particular, any kind of fire, if it occurs, the surface heat flux will be order of 300, particularly Bellevue or pool fire, maybe around of 300 kilowatt per meter square. So a human being, just for giving you an idea, our first degree burn will be around say 12 kilowatt per meter square. Second degree burn will be around 24 kilowatt per meter square, and third degree burn is about 36 kilowatt per meter square. Or if you talk about in terms of joule, maybe 5 degree, I mean, you consider around 10 second, maybe around say 125 kilojoule per meter square. So that much of heat. So you see that 12 kilowatt per meter square will give you in the first degree burn, whereas the fire case 300 kilowatt per meter square. So you can understand the lethality. So even the IOCL Jaipur fire case also you have found that lethal. So it can, so because of the thermal heat flux calculation in the fire model is very, very important. Now jet fire model is not very well developed, and flame impeachment, as I told that in the refinery or in the chemical industry, when we calculate, so one vessel to another vessel, the inter-vessel distance we calculate based on the this, if any scenario we consider, it should not come to more than 5 kilowatt per meter square. So inter-vessel spacing is also important. Then two-phase model, because if any highly compressed liquid is there, and if it is a some gas is compressed and liquefied, when it comes out, it can be the two-phase. That two-phase modeling is a little difficult. So of course, there are two-phase models are there. We are using the consequence analysis. Now in the flash fire, as I told, that it is little bit of delay fire, not immediately fire. A release has occurred, and after sometimes it is catching fire. That is called flash fire. It is non-explosive combustion because the pressure wave or the shock wave will not generate, but the thermal heat flux will cause. And this major headers from the flash fire is the thermal radiation and direct flame contact. So as I told that 300 kilowatt per meter square, and if person is threshold limit is maybe first degree burn 12 kilowatt per meter square. So that's for all our design calculation. We will not allow more than 5 kilowatt per meter square for the design. So safety distance we have to calculate in such a way that it will not occur more than 5 kilowatt per meter square. Now you see the development of pool fire. This is a special kind of fire, particularly again a refinery or hydrochemical, the hydrocarbon industries, where the lot of liquid like kerosene, petrol, diesels, or this of liquid is being stored. So normally we provide a dike. So dike, what happens if it is leaked? So dike will be, dike is designed in such a way that it will take care of the entire amount of liquid. So that height, whatever liquid is, and if it finds a fire source, then it can catch fire. So it becomes the pool fire. You can see that when it is becoming pool fire, you see that how vapor cloud is expanding, and you see that it is finding an ignition source, it is catching fire. You see how the flash fire is taking place. And in fact, if you want to model, then first thing what we calculate is the how much burn rate. This how much this because the time, as I told, this thermal heat flux, and when we calculate the effect model, like one is consequence analysis, another is the one which we are calculating the thermal heat flux, the release. After that we are calculating how much it is dispersing, and then we are finding the the effect model or the Probit model. So there the input is the how much the thermal heat flux is coming, and the time. So this will govern that vertical burning rate. You have to find it out. And there are some mathematical model through which you can calculate the mass burning rate and the pool fire characteristics, how it is propagating. And there are, of course, there is another model which we also use sometimes, that is called Dow and Mont, that is Dow index, and that is of course the insurance industry they are mostly using. But these are also model where you can find it out. The fire hazards or the material hazards. Now you see that full fire models, if you see the flow diagram, first you have to calculate that vertical burning or the mass burning, then you have to calculate the flame height, and then you have to calculate the diameter of the pools. So normally if it is open ground and there is no dike is there, then 1 centimeter height we will assume that much of liquid it will have, and we calculate depending on the all the atmospheric constants or the mass transfer, everything we can calculate how much it is the flashing is occurring, and the ultimately how much heat flux it can cause. And of course there are two models are available that we use, that is solid flow model and the point source model, and finally you calculate the thermal heat flux. Now you see that bonding, of course some empirical correlations are there, but I always advise to use 3D model that will give you the clear cut picture. Now you see that pool fire, pool size, also some empirical study is being done, and sometimes also it can be used. Now again the pool fire model, if you calculate all the total energy or the heat flux, then we can use the transmissivity and the view factor. We can use the point source models, and the point source model is a model where entire fire is there. You are considering this entire amount of fuel is confined to a particular points. That is comparatively easy to calculate, but it will give you overestimate result. The solid pool model will take care of the geometry of the fire. Now you see that pool fire thermal radiation. Now thermal radiations, if you see, you can see that thermal radiation, the view factor we can calculate, and the transmissivity, and if we calculate the total heat flux, and if we use the proper V factor, then we can calculate how much radiation, thermal radiation, as I was talking about the 12.5 kilowatt per meter square or 24 kilowatt per meter, that kind of values where it is reaching, and as I was talking, the spatial distance of vessels, that is 5 kilowatt per meter square, where it is coming. So based on that only we can calculate the safety distance. Now you see the type of explosions. Now type of explosion, if you see, I have shown you there is actually interesting story in fact. So some terrorist organization somewhere people they wanted to make explosions, and they declared beforehand that okay, we'll explode it mall or something. So some curious journalists, they wanted to see how explosion effect. But you see that explosion effect, they wanted to photograph. So this when the explosion is occurring, after the microsecond phenomena, that explosion overpressure will come. So that explosion overpressure, as I was telling, that even 0.5 atmosphere overpressure can overturn a loaded wagon. So you can see that. So it can happen. So that explosion overpressure is very, very dangerous. So that those journalists, they tried to see that the effect of explosions and all, they wanted to photograph it, but there is an explosion just after the peak overpressure. There will be because of inertia, will find there is a temporary vacuum will be there. So that vacuum, because of that, particularly the glass window. So after explosion, you will find that all the because of this low pressure, all the glass window will be shattered, and this is a microsecond phenomena. You can see that this deflagration, you will get little more time. So that's why deflagration is a very fast burning, but the shock wave, the pressure wave will not be there as the detonation. So this is the deflagration curve, and I'll tell some incident also. So now one research area, if I came to know that they were doing some kind of research, explosive research, and they were trying to do some operations, and where the static charge, they wanted to remove from the metal core from the explosive mixtures, and they just the SOP tells about that after removing the casting, or they have to remove the metal, and while removing that, there is a gasket, and that some amount of explosive mixture was attached with that, and because of this small friction, the entire thing got exploded. So that's why static charge is again an explosion area is very, very important. While designing, you have to see that you have to design even a gasket, even all the contact points are very, very important. Now you see the Blevy is a model. There are some internationally some accident happened because of Blevy. What happened normally, if you design a vessels, you can think of how much temperature it can with all the structural property you can calculate the thickness and all. But in case of suppose this is a vessels, okay, it is having particularly again refinery or hydrochemical industries or other chemical industry where a lot of the flammable material is being stored. You know that this is the suppose tank and the liquid is there and the fire is externally it is coming. Now externally when it is touching the vessel, so again, because of the domino effect, because of this fire, what happens? This fuel will try to boil itself. Now it will vaporize. Now once the heat is there, this will take the initial heat load here. But in the vapor space, it will have the thermal capacity will be less than the liquid, and here actually absorption heat will be less. So entire amount of heat will be absorbed on the container. Now this container material, what happens? Even it is observed that even also reaching that that yield stress, before the yield stress also this will fail. So this entire amount of flammable mixture will come out as a cloud, and that cloud will the cloud will make explosions. And there are some such type of explosions occurs in particularly LPG fire. LPG gases international, there are Blavi explosion has occurred. So when you want to do the model, you have to find it out what is the Blavi size, that is the cloud size. Then you have to find it out duration, how much time it can stay, and estimate surface emitted flux, estimate the geometric view factor, and then you have to see the atmospheric transmittivity. So it is also function of how much humidity of the atmosphere. If fire is occurring, more the humidity, transmittivity will be less. So that's why if it is a dry, dry atmosphere condition, then the atmospheric transmittivity will be much higher. So that's why the estimated thermal heat flux also will be higher. So those are things you have to model. And again, mathematically, some empirical models you can do it, but again it will little overestimate, because as I told that it is true for some particular hydrocarbon. So you have to see the very specifically. That's why the CFD model is better, where you can simulate the exact scenario. So if you calculate the time of Blavi, then you have to calculate how much explosions the energy will be released. Because if you know all the heat combustions, then the radiation, the fractions, then you can calculate, and based on the transmittivity and view factor, you can calculate the amount of the thermal heat flux. Now you see that explosions also, there are several models. So I'll discuss one or two models for you. So what is TNT model? So TNT model is worldwide is very familiar. Like water hardness we measure in terms of calcium carbonate. Here also explosives, any explosive you use, it is always measured in terms of TNT equivalent, trinitrotoluene. So here what you have to calculate, you have to find the mass of explosive like propane or butane or any explosives you mixtures you take. And then if you know the heat of combustions, and if you find it out the equivalent TNT, you use that equivalent TNT heat of combustions, and you come out with the equivalent amount of TNT. And if you researchers has found that this overpressure is a function of some kind of cube root of the weight of the explosives. So they have a graph. So where you can find it out, the scale distance you have to find it out. That is, and then from the scale distance you can find out the scaled overpressures. Now you can see, as I was telling you, that to get an idea, suppose atmospheric pressure is around 14.7 psi. You can see even 1 psi is sufficient enough. If explosion is happen, then the pressure wave can knock you out. So any individual can be thrown because of this 1 psi. And that 5 psi pressure, that it can rupture an eardrum. And you can see that around 15 psi or atmosphere, it is damaging the lungs. So that is becoming the lethal, and more you go higher. Of course, 65 psi, of 99% fatality, and of course there will be probability. 15 psi, there will be probability of fatality will be there. Now you see that if you see the equipment, so 0.5 psi, as I was telling, it can shattered it's a glass window. It is a glass window can be broken. 1 to 2 psi, you can see that common sliding types fails. 2 to 3 psi on reinforced concrete, a block wall can fail. 3 to 4 psi, you can see that when the self-hem steel panel buildings can collapse. And 7 psi, that is almost half of atmospheric, and loaded rail cars can overturn. So this is having tremendous structural damage. Now these fire simulations, if you, as I was all the time talking about the fire simulations, it's better, but you have to develop some kind of expertise so that you can really see the how smoke will you can really put all the thermocouples and all the extinguishing media, whatever you have, and the fire barrier, everything, and you can find the ignition source. Basically, you can calculate based on the heat release rate or the mass burning rate or some kind of heat input you give in the flammable thing, and find out how smoke is propagating, how fire is propagating. You can see that analytical model, the fundamental, if you use the first principle, you can calculate the fire load and you can calculate the heat release rate, and typical output you can temperature rise or the you can calculate. There is another model that is called Joule model, that is some scientist MQH they have developed a correlation. It is always seen that any fire is happening, so normally there will be cold layer and there will be hot layer. So top the flammable gases will come, and then it will it will heat all the cables and all the top the floor, and you can see that you can find that through MQH correlation you can find out the hot temperature. So structural damage you can find it out from the building. So whatever the concrete and the steel, so you can find it out what temperature it can. As I told that 550 degree normally is considered to be damaging condition. So how much time it can withstand, what is the temperature profile and all that, even Joule model you can use. Ideally is the most ideal is the field model, where you can use the conservation of mass, momentum, and these things, energy, species, and the CFD model. So that CFD models you can find it out, even the all the gaseous, not only the temperature, even the all the compositions of chemicals, suppose carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, these gases, what should be the concentration, what could be the smoke, and the suffocation, everything you can study. Total heat flux, surface temperature, smoke, everything you can study. Now in the CFD model, if you want to study, then you have to use the continuity equation. You have to solve the Navier-Stokes, the momentum equation, Navier-Stokes equation, and you have to solve the energy equations, and you have to use the your geometry, your boundary conditions. And one of the study we have done for one of the, for example, one system, you can see that here once some methanol is there, it's a cleaning media, and we assume that some fire has occurred. Now we wanted to study, there's a critical system, and that is actually effect of this system, because there will be some kind of insulations will be there, barrier will be the weather, what temperature, whether it can damage the insulations or not. This study we have done and we can see how the temperature profile, but the only CFD model, the challenges is the meshing. So even the more the finer mesh, more the computation time. But again, this a turbulence model if you want to use, if you take the bigger mesh, you may not capture the incident. So that's why you have to find the optimizing mesh. You have to find it out the optimized mesh, when you select such a way, and then you can find it out. You have to do some sensitivity analysis, and you can calculate temperature profile, velocity profile, and you can simulate the real scenario. So I'll discuss about some case studies, so that I think how much time I have? 10, Professor Maiti?
Another 5 minutes.
Another 5 minutes. So another 5 minutes. I'll cover. No problem. So this is the any types of process expert, whatever we discuss. These are typical cases. All of you, many of you know. I think that is the Flixboro explosions. You see that one of the tank actually it was leaking. They just removed and they decided to connect. This is the connect with the whatever pipeline they have in the stores. And all of you know that the explosions occurs because this pipeline leaked, and some around I think cyclohexane or so is leaked actually, and it caused fire. So that's why the design modification, any design modification in the industry we do. This is the one case study where taught us that you should just by the plan discussion. There's here what happened in the shop floor managers, and they decided to replace, and they want to run the plant just replace the they bypass the vessels and they just connected, and because of this accident happened. So any design, any changes you do, as I told that FHA is important, fire hazard analysis is important. Similarly, you have to see the design modification has to be checked by the proper process expert. Now you see that Fukushima, the lesson learned, just I want to give you, because it's a recent case, all of you know that 1970s, if you see that around the safety culture, we started with the 79 the TMI incident. We talked about a lot about the training, safety training. Then Chernobyl, we talked about the safety cultures. And after this Fukushima, we thought that safety training is also there, safety culture is also there. And even that this accident happening, then we found that it is a human, organization and technological factor, HOT factors. We have published quite a monographs also on this, and we try to sensitize. Here you can see that this when the common cause, because of tsunami, the design basis flood level, what they assume as per design around 6 meter, but actually what had occurred around 11 meter. And because of this water came, and this when the water entered into the plant building, the DG. So the fire, in the nuclear reactor, there will be 3 levels of power supply. One will be the class 4 power supply, that is the common grid. Second level will be your DG, and third will be inverter, and fourth level will be battery. So second, the power, whenever the external power, the grid power lost, then immediately they tried to start the DG, but DG got submerged, and then there's a challenge. Of course, they could achieve the safety function, they could stop the plant, but they could not cool the plant, because ultimately we found that DG got submerged and DG power was not there, and ultimately battery also got exhausted, and that's how the loss of cooling accident, LOCA accident happened. And all of you know that this zirconium is there, ZrO2 is there as the fuel clad, and that reacted with water, and there's a hydrogen generated, and because of the hydrogen explosion, you can see this happened at the reactors. So this is happened even after all the so much of safety precautions and all. That's why this lesson learned immediately all our nuclear reactors. We have checked the design basis flood level. DG also we have made in a high level DG, fire water requirement, immediately additional water, and the seismic, of course, seismic trip, everything is incorporated. And along with that, the emergency procedure, as we told that what should be our emergency criteria, because immediately the removing people is not a good option. You have to have very optimizing conditions, particularly country like India. So we are really prepared for all the lesson learned, as I told that has been taken care of in India. And many of you know that about Chernobyl, you know about the TMI, or just I talked about the Fukushima. So Brown Ferry is the one nuclear fire, because many of you may not be able to know that this has happened in 1975. What happened? This is the one area where all the nuclear community learned about the fire. What happens in there was reactor 1, 2, and 3 was there. And reactor 1 and 2 was operating, and 3 they were just constructing. So they were trying to lay all the cables. And in nuclear reactor, any building would be there, always it will be having negative pressure. So it should not have positive pressure, because there is something, radioactivity should not come out to the environment. So that has to be always the content. So always it has to be negative pressure. So when they were taking the cable, so from the one fire compartment to another compartment, there was a ceiling is there, that is polyurethane ceiling. And they were checking with the ceiling with the some candle, and they were just blowing air, and they're checking whether the candle is moving or not, and whether the ceiling is intact or not. While doing so, it got caught fire, and as I told that the entire cable got caught fire, and then cable spreading room is there. Cable spreading room also got fired. So immediately all the control rooms, all the instruments, sensors got with all wrong signals, all started smoke, all chaos, and they immediately tried to douse the fire by they thought that okay, we will put the CO2 extinguishers because the CO2 flooding system the plant is designed in such a typical safety level that all the hazards they considered that their primary heat transport system, if it fails, pipeline ruptures, all these safety precautions has given, but they didn't thought of small fire can cause such a havoc, and almost 7 hours there was no power and all, and because of that when they found that they found that CO2 systems is available, they want to put CO2 system, but they could not make it on because design is made in such a way that if person is available then CO2 cannot be started. So they evacuated, they tried to put CO2, but it could not quench the cable fire. Then firemen told, say, look, I am having water. That's what I can do. More than that I cannot do. So if you tell I can use the fire, but they thought it's a very sophisticated event, so much of money involved. They initially was reluctant to put water, but ultimately they allowed to put water and they could quench the fire. But 7 hours it's difficulty, and the entire nuclear industry and other industries, they learned that even the high voltage line is there, high voltage or EHV line is there, or the instrumentation line, they should not be put together. Even if we put together, put EHV on the top, the high voltage, so fire is there, that should not affect the cable. And all our plants, we are immediately designed in such a way that all our inspection also, we told that all instrument line has to be separate, so that, and as I told, that all the fire compartment, the fire influence approach has to be followed. So a lot of lesson learned has been taken care. And you see that one of the inspections I made on the other than non-nuclear industries, I told because this is one of the audit team when I was there. So here is a typical textile industries where happened in the long back, almost 19 years back. So the owner itself was sitting in the plant, and he was having maybe 10-15 people with him, and they were using the petroleum ether. Petroleum ether was actually singeing. They were doing singeing operation, because all of you might have seen that the cottons and the woolen things, whichever is coming out from your shirt and pant, if those things they wanted to put some flame and they want to put it aesthetically, they want to improve the cotton. That was the operation, and they were storing some petroleum ether. And when this explosion, this tea vendor came, when we interviewed, we found the tea vendor came. That time he was telling everything was normal, but after that suddenly explosion occurred. All these people died and building collapsed. And while investigating, we found only 6 liters of petroleum ether was there. So you can see that vapor cloud explosion can be possible, and the ignition source is you have to see all the time. Anything can happen, any smoking, and if anything happen between the lower flammable limit and upper flammable limit, then ignition and explosion also can be possible if confinement is there. Now you see the another explosions while I was there in the investigation team. So while that is a explosion occurred in some private industries in Nashik, they were making some mine explosives, gelatin explosive, and they were using some ammonium nitrate. Ammonium nitrate is very sensitive. Even the Pakistan also, there was some ammonium nitrate storage was there, and in the storage itself, there's a critical diameter exists in the such kind of explosives. While, as I told, inbuilt oxygen is available. You don't require to any ignition source. While dumping itself, it forms a big crater. So explosion and big crater in the ammonium nitrate. So it's very critical. So they were using ammonium nitrate, and then they were thinking of processing that gelatin, and there is a screw conveyor belt was there. So when the accident happened, and all the Ministry of Home Affairs, and when the team has been conducted, when the audit team we investigated the plant, then we found that entire 3-storied building exploded, and there's formed a big crater. And when only 1 or 2 surviving persons we interviewed, then we came to know that any plant, any explosion happen, that always gives some kind of indication. So one difficult thing I found, that the process man itself, he himself, tackling care of safety. So that is one of the that should not be advisable for any industry. We always try to make safety as a independent. So that I think industry people they are doing, and you should insist. And then we found, while I back calculated the explosion overpressure nearby village, and their roof got exploded and all the glass shattered, exploded. I mean, shattered, broken. So explosion. When I tried to back calculate the explosion, how much explosive quantity was there, then I found that they were storing much more than the permissible limit. That is because they were thinking they were producing some batch by batch, and they were thinking to transfer after a time when the entire batch or the transport arrangement will come. And the most difficult part, we could found that the owner left and the DM taken over the emergency situation. So such a explosion is such a dangerous things. You have to take care from the design stage. And you see the conclusion is that fire safety in industries can ensure thorough, robust design principle like defense in depth, which I explained, and then high standard of safety can be achieved through fire hazard analysis. Not only fire order, but fire hazard analysis has to be there. High reliability, because wherever critical system, the reliability and quality should be there. And eliminating, at least you have to see that I could not explain because of the shortage time. There's a flammable along with the flammable triangle. There is also flammable, lot of flammable limits diagrams are there. So you have to see that particular flammable zone, it should not come. You cannot remove all the time of ignition energy. You have to see that that flammable mixture should not come. How that there are some techniques are available to make it, and that facility management combination, and ultimately the top management because safety is not a cost thing, but actually it is profit for the industry if you manage properly, and your aim should be a zero accident. And I hope that I could give you some idea on the fire modeling and the fire theory and the overview of the fire in nuclear industry and other industries. Thank you very much. Now we can discuss anything doubts if you have.
Thank you, Dr. Dishendu. It was excellent explanation of this fire incidences along with the case studies. Case studies were very, very relevant. So I will now request Souvik or Ashish to take over for the Q&A session.
Thank you, ma'am. So thank you, Dr. Das, for this wonderful presentation. We have a lot of queries in the chat box, so I'll take some of them one by one. So the first query is, in a steel company, we have many toxic as well as flammable gases, examples like coke oven, blast furnace gas. Sometimes fire catches without any fire source also. What are the latest techniques to fight gas fire?
Yeah, that's what I was telling, that even without ignition source, there is if a gas is flowing or the fluid is flowing, always there will be a friction and there will be static charge. Now you have to see that you have to design in such a way that minimum friction should be there, and the material compatibility also you have to see the insulation, proper insulation should be there, and so that any internal source. And also I told that sometimes some chemicals having inbuilt oxygen, it doesn't require the oxygen from outside. So that's why while designing you have to take care of, because it is a very case to case specific, that particular chemical property you have to study first, then only we can decide. But the idea is that you have to see that no static, if it is explosives, explosive mixture is there. That's what I told, there is a flammability limit diagram is there. So at any conditions, for example, I can give you a methane gas cylinder is there. If you 100% gas cylinder is there, then it will not explode. But if you open it and slowly it allowed to some leak is happening, then air will come, and at some concentration you will find it is falling within LFL and UFL. And if it gets some ignition source or some fire, it can catch fire. So we have to limit that conditions. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. So the next question is, how should we deploy firefighting team in case of fire to a radioactive facility when the radiation source is open or live, or even in natural radiation source?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So as I told you that of course nowadays all water sprinkler range there, automatic CO2 flooding system is there, that is called Cardoc system. So intelligent fire detection system is designed in the critical areas such a way in case of fire and of course that just in giving you an idea, suppose a reactor is there, typically 1000 megawatt reactor is there. So you say that 1% once is put off the fire, maybe 1%, 2% of that means around 100 megawatt, immediately it will happen, that much of decay it would be there. After sometimes it is exponentially decay, and then radioactivity will be, the things will come down. So you have to, fireman has to wait for the radioactive thing, and you have to use automatic thing, and it is always being done in consultation with health physics unit, where health physics unit, that any radioactive is not a dangerous things. For example, every day you take banana, so banana is having a lot of radioactivity things, K40 is there, and even the cosmic radiations we are getting. So you see that our atmosphere is having radioactivity, and we are susceptible to the radioactivity. So any radioactivity is not there. If you maintain a distance and your health physics is allowing such a low dose, nothing will happen, then people can do that. But of course, if Chernobyl movie, if you see that firemen came to the core of the reactor and tried to douse the fire, that kind of thing is not advisable. Always it has to be consulted with the health physics and the permissible limit, where that, because it is time, distance and shielding phenomena. You allow more time to decay, and then distance, maintain the distance or maintain some shielding. Either of these three is used, and then based on the permissible thing you can do, it can be done, and it is being done for small fire. And of course the critical area, normally it is so well protected, as I was discussing our defense in depth. So all the defense has given, so that nowadays these automatic things also being put up, like Cardoc system or carbon dioxide system. So manual intervention will be less. Yeah. I hope I clarified.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It was clarified. So the next question is, what will be the extinguishing medium of hydrogen fire? If fire catches in turbine where it is cooled by hydrogen, then what
Okay.
will be the action of fire mitigation?
Yes. So the hydrogen fire is one thing is you can limit the ventilation, the oxygen, in particularly turbine fire. So CO2 also you can use CO2, and people have used such a case CO2.
So thank you. We are taking one more last question. How
Yeah.
are machine learning techniques being implemented in fire safety in nuclear plants?
Yeah, this is a good research area. Machine learning technique also, because the fire PSA, we are doing the fire probability safety analysis, where all the data of historical data and the machine data are being used, and it is worldwide it is using, and in India also we are doing fire probabilistic study, where the learning thing. But anyway, still it is in R&D stage, and of course the probabilistic safety analysis is being used.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for nice explanation.
Yeah.
Now I would like to hand over the session to yes, ma'am. Hello.
Yes.
What happened to
Is
you?
there?
Okay. Dr. Divyendu Das, this is OB Krishna.
Yes, sir.
How do I really thank you? I'm totally mesmerized. Your talk started with the fire basics, fire risk assessments, systems, everything. You were flowing like a Ganga river. The knowledge is flowing. So I'm really happy with. Probably I have to see 2-3 times your video again, your talk again, to understand minutely.
Yes.
So you have covered so many things, so many subjects you have covered. You have addressed research issues. You have addressed practical practitioners issues. It's a really a talk which could be enjoyed by all the people. academicians as well as the practitioners. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
As we said, COE will work with you. We'll work jointly. All your what you call visions or missions which you thought were not fulfilled. We are here to fulfill all your visions. We work together for the safety of the people, for the safety of the property, so that they will live. Especially, I just want to ask you one thing.
Yes.
The nuclear standards which India follow,
Yes.
the nuclear standards implemented and monitored are equal to the Western countries.
Yes, because you see that yeah, in nuclear industry particularly, we are International Atomic Energy Agency (IAEA) is giving some guidelines, and in conventional of nuclear safety, because it is a nuclear industry, means anything happening, it is a transboundary effect is there. So where all country will see the good practices of other, and if any lacuna is there, for example, you know that our neighboring countries always they are more inquisitive about our research and all. So you know that any particular platform, whenever we are getting for the CNS abroad, so we are presenting all our fire or safety or nuclear safety, process safety, everything is detailed discussed, and we have to present. And every year we are giving, even in the net also you can find it out, our CNS report, and it is at par with the international standard. And IAEA and US NRC, we are having regular MOU we are having, and even France regulatory, even Japan, WANO, World Atomic Nuclear Operators, we are all together, and our lessons learned are shared with each country, and WANO is giving very good remarks about India. So every year they are visiting IAEA, International Atomic Energy, they are visiting us. And in fact, our level is so high that even some countries are who they are developing nuclear, they are taking our help. Even you might be knowing that Bangladesh is coming, the Indonesia coming. So there are many countries they are coming for the nuclear. They are taking expertise from us. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. In between, you also told a word. The learning is not there. People are telling you don't agree. I appreciate the learning of the people industry is very high. That's what I feel always.
Yeah, we see that since one of your talk, I think one professor, somebody told that India not happening. It's not good, because every industry they are trying their level best. We know that human organization and technological factor. So sometimes it is happening that we are trying to see the immediate the root cause, but actually it is having some latent weakness in the organization. So
Correct.
that point we are trying to establish, but of course India is not doing that. I am totally disagreeing. There is a lot of happening, and that's why you see that almost 30 years in nuclear industry we are doing, and almost our safety records are very good, and it is all appreciated.
Thank you, Dr. Das. You have motivated me. You have motivated the Indian people. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And my thanks to all the audience. Though it is fire is a very, very difficult subject. You stayed back and heard Dr. Das, and my team who is monitoring all these things. Mom and her team they did a good job. Professor Maiti, thank you very much. You are clapping. I know you are clapping for Dr. Das. I know, not for me. Thank you very much. Thank you all. Thank you all. We'll meet next Friday again.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all.
Dr. Das, we will be in touch.
Thank you,
Yeah,
sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Very informative lecture, sir.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, good night.
Good night.